Hello, welcome everyone to our webinar from Worldwide HealthStaff Solutions, Safety and Security in the United States. We are so excited to be able to speak with you today. I'd like to introduce the rest of our panel. We have Ashley Wheatley, she is the Director of Relocation, and Marlo Bench, who is the Director of RN Case Management. And my name is Stephanie Tucker. I'm the Associate Director of Candidate Support, and we are so happy to be able to speak with you today. So let's move on. We wanted to let you know, first of all, to make an important reminder that you enjoy the full legal protection under the U.S. laws, your rights and protections as a temporary or permanent visa holder in the United States. I highly recommend and encourage you to understand your rights and responsibilities as an immigrant. We have federal, state, and local governments. So luckily we live in an age where you can look things up on the internet, or if you arrive in the United States, the library is a wonderful place for you to go in order to understand and investigate exactly, what your protections are here. Just so you know. So I wanted to begin by talking about my dad. So my dad is an immigrant. He was born in China, in Shanghai. And in the 60s, he moved to the United States, particularly Hawaii. And he tells the story to me where his family bought him a Greyhound bus ticket. Now, those of you who don't know, Greyhound bus is a bus charter service. So basically, instead of taking a train or a plane, you would take Greyhound across the United States. Well, this didn't do him any good because, first of all, he was in Hawaii, which is an island. And second of all, that had nothing to do with the public transportation there. So he was very shocked when he arrived in the United States. But since we live in, 2024 coming up, you have the ability to get to know your area in a much better fashion by the internet. So research your area, look at websites. There's so many different websites out there. Just be aware of where you're going and what to look for, and local resources. There's so many available in the United States. That is one really good thing. Again, go to your library, do your research, go to Facebook. Social media is a great place in order to look for ideas or groups, particularly, I know that there are a lot of Filipino Facebook groups. I mean, there's so many things out there to help. I know, Ashley, your group is very aware of, those types of resources. Did I forget anything that might be useful?
No, just to add in, excuse me. Hi, everybody. So excited to be here. Your relocation team is definitely one to ask these questions to. They can help you to know some great websites to help you get to know your area a little bit better. Something that I just want to talk about that can really help you with getting to know your area is a special thing called a zip code. So in the United States, every area is designated with a zip code. And I can go into the logistics of how that works, but a zip code is a 5-digit number that correlates with the town or the city or even the little neighborhood that you're living in. When you search your city, you could say, let's say I am moving to Stanton, Virginia. I could type in Stanton, Virginia into Google, and then I put zip code. If I put that on there, that'll give you the digit number, and then you use that digit number to say, look for grocery stores near this zip code, and it will find all the little things that are in and around that area, even more specifically than just your city name. So that's just a tip and trick with getting to know your area. But if you talk with your relocation coordinators, they'll be able to give you even more tips and tricks with able to look around. And you can use that for looking for public transportation, just like the Greyhound situation. Say, hey, is there public transportation in this area? Where is my closest pizza parlor? Anything like that can be found with the zip code. So that's kind of just a fun tip there.
Marlo, did you have anything to add? So, you moved here from Canada. You're also an immigrant.
I did, yeah. As a matter of fact, when it comes to getting to know your neighborhood, and I'm not sure how international certain apps are, but there's an app called Nextdoor. Ashley, have you used it? Steph, have you used it? So these apps are pretty fantastic because your community, and when I say community, like literally locally within a couple of miles of where you live, and also, within a certain radius of where you're at, your neighborhood connects with one another through these little social media apps as well. So oftentimes, if I want to know if something's happening in the neighborhood that I live in, there's people that have put in, hey, I've seen some suspicious activity on such and such street, or, hey, I heard, this, sound last night at 2:00. Did anybody else hear it? I mean, they even post pictures of, hey, I saw 5 deer run into my front yard this morning. Those are really helpful to not just to get to know your neighborhood, but actually just connect with the people in your neighborhood. I guess establishing a relationship or friendships or just establishing yourself in your neighborhood is really a good place to start.
Yeah, I love that. In fact, I get those emails from Nextdoor.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily get on my phone, but I will get emails from the Nextdoor app.
Yeah.
And also, just a quick reminder, the United States is a huge country. I mean, I actually live in Idaho, and I drove to the East Coast, and we drove 35 plus hours to get here. And we used an app called Waze, which again, we have so much technology now. You really cannot, it's really a great time to immigrate to the United States. I'm not going to lie. So just be aware how large the United States is.
I think that's an important thing to know with getting to know your area as well. It's important to put places into Google Maps. It's important to say, okay, if I live here, or my facility is here, how far away is it actually from something? Because to Americans, an hour drive could be nothing. So just remember that everything is very, very subjective. So based on your experience, you want to look to see the distance of things using maps.
Absolutely. Or Waze. My husband likes Waze too. Waze. All right, so let's move on. Child safety. So this is something that I'm going to pull Ashley Wheatley into because my youngest child is 18. So we're in a different age now, but we definitely did when my children were younger, talked about what's called stranger danger. So you want to make sure that, how you've got to go over with your family. How do you answer the phone? Do you have a buddy system? Look at your surroundings. Also, I wanted to, Ashley, I know you mentioned earlier something that you used. What was it called? A safety word?
Yeah. So something that we have always done is that we have like a family safe word. When I was in college, we actually used the word peaches as a good example. But if you ever got stuck and in a situation, you could text the word peaches or just say, hey, did you pick up the peaches from the store? Or any kind of way to use that word. Use a word that you're not going to use very commonly. But it's really good with your children because you can reach out to them and say, hey, if you can ask someone for help. You call me, you tell me that word, and I know I need to come get you without anybody having any suspicions or anything like that. It's just a good way that you can stay with your children, stay safe, and make sure that they feel secure and have a way out if they need to.
Absolutely. I love that. And again, I'm going to promote the library. There's lots of books at the library. about these types of things. If you have young kids, I highly recommend it. So going on, yeah. So, and also car seat regulations. I don't know how it is in other countries, but in the United States, we do have car seat regulations for children, and it's been a while. So for babies, Ashley, I think, and Marlo, you have to have a certain car seat, correct?
Oh, yeah.
The easiest way to put it is every state is going to have different regulations, but they're primarily based on the weight of the child. So if you have a very small 5-year-old, they're still going to follow the same regulations as a very large 2-year-old. So just know the weight of your child, and you want to look when you arrive at a state, you want to look into what those requirements are. But there's kind of 3 different types of car seats. You have an infant one that's usually turned backwards into the seat. You have a child or a toddler seat that's facing forward, and then you have a booster seat. And booster seats are usually meant for those older kids who aren't quite at that weight limit yet, or just need a booster to help them with the strap so it doesn't cut them off with their seatbelt. That's a big one. One of the biggest tips that I like is you can get these, they look like little triangles, but they strap onto your seatbelt so that they can hold the seatbelt down so it doesn't cut the child in the neck. And so those are really good, and that just gives them more support on their chest when they have those little booster seats. Marlo, am I missing anything?
Well, I'm just going to add on to what you said earlier. I have quite a few grandchildren, and I have actually a couple preemie grandchildren that are one's 5 now, and the other one's going to be turning 3 soon. But my 3-year-old, we still have to keep him turned around the other way. So as Ashley mentioned, if you have a really tiny little one, even though he's going to be almost 3, we still have to keep him rear facing, and he's still in a very small car seat. So also car seats are really different now. They require, certain cables. They have to be clipped in. Cars are now equipped with really excellent safety features like anchors for you to specifically clip in extra straps to secure in your car seat. I have to watch all of my children put the car seat in, and it's almost like you need, a training course and how to actually just even install the car seat.
Do you know, I have a tip for that. You can go to your fire department, and they will help you, look at your seat and make sure that it's okay. So that I did not know that, but that's just like a free thing that they'll do.
And fire departments are incredible. You can go talk to them about any of the safety tips that we're talking about today, and they'll be able to help you with any of those. That they're there for that. And never feel scared to go talk to them. I mean, they're there to help you. Another tip that I just used recently is when you buy a new car seat, you can watch a YouTube video on how to install it very specific to that seat and even to your specific car. Another thing to just be reminded of when you're using rideshare apps like Uber or Lyft, there are options to have booster seats or child safety. It may cost a little bit extra. And sometimes you have to plan a little bit ahead of time. If you are doing a pickup service, you can request for those seats. But you can also bring childcare seats, like booster care seats, on the plane with you. Those you can check them in as luggage, different things. Different airlines have different rules around that. But it's always good to have it with you, just in case.
Thank you, everyone. Great tips there. So let's move on. Oh, I have another story about my dad. Okay, emergency resources. So going in, 911 is the universal, the number that we use if you want to call the police department. when a 911 call occurs, the fire department comes along. That's kind of like a regulation thing. So, and they're very, very quick. Our 911 system is very, very efficient. You should feel good about that. I mean, you don't need to worry that when you call 911, you're going to get an answer and you're going to get help. So, for instance, my dad, we did not know this, but he was allergic to tomatoes. So he had eaten something with tomatoes, and this was a party that at our home, and he just passed out, literally just fell back, hit his head, like broke through a cabinet, and they called 911 to see, how he was doing. So, just so you know, again, I wanted to go off what Ashley said before. 911 is a wonderful resource for you, when you have an emergency. And just to be aware, you use 911 when you want to report a fire, when there's a crime in progress, you need to request emergency medical help, or a gas leak, or any kind of suspicious activities. It's a call for help. Does anybody, I can move on. I believe that, Marlo, and also to go over, we have poison control centers. So there's online or on the phone, if something happens with poisoning, animal control is also another, really great resource. If you see an animal that's hurt, you can call animal control. There's just so many things that, are here to help. Does anybody have any stories that they want to tell about that?
I'll just add that these resources work really well. I think the three of us, and probably whoever is listening today at any point in time, has had to reach out for an emergency service. And I know that animal control works because I had a little doggy that got himself into the wrong plant. And I've had our local fire department assist with some things. I've obviously, had to touch base with police once or twice. These emergency resources are very reliable. I don't know how things work in the rest of the world, and I wanted to just kind of address everybody that's listening today, and thought I might like to ask. So I see Saudis on today, Kenya, South Africa. I saw someone in Spain. You guys are amazing to be awake, to be listening to this right now. But if there's something specific that works in your local areas, we'd love to hear about it. If you want to hop in the chat and say, hey, Spain, why don't you let us know what your emergency number is in Spain, or Kenya, what works for you? It's really good that we educate ourselves on, what goes on in the rest of the world.
Absolutely. And I just wanted to add, too, that police departments also have a non-emergency number that you can call, just like for general questions. They're listed, obviously on the internet, and they probably have a website. So
they do.
Yeah.
Now, just to add on to that, there's a tip that I love that you can Google search and say, using that zip code again, I'm always going to advocate that. But find your zip code and say, what is the local emergency numbers for this zip code? And you'll easily find the poison control number, the animal control number. And something that I like to help my immigrants with is get a piece of paper, write all those numbers down, and then stick it to your fridge. It's something that we have on our fridge. We actually found a cute little magnet on Amazon that is just like fill in the blank, like what are your numbers? And we just wrote it in expo marker. But we have that on our fridge. So at any time, if something happens, you can say, oh my goodness, my dog got into chocolate, right? And I need to call somebody real quick to figure out my dog got into my medication, what's going to happen. Or my child did, right? You can call the poison control number without having to get on your phone and being like, oh my goodness, what's the number? Right? So if you just keep it on your fridge, it's easy access. And just for my personal experience as well, know that the police, again, the fire department, they are in those jobs because they want to help people. You know, they want to be there. They want to help. I had a funny situation. I was living in an apartment, and in the middle of the night, all of our fire alarms started going off in our apartment. We came outside, couldn't figure out what was going on. Nobody else was going off. There was no fire. There was no smoke. Couldn't figure out what was happening. And then a ton of water came through our ceiling. And the fire department, we called the fire department's non-emergency line to come help with our fire. And they had a whole team of like 8 people. Didn't need all that, but they helped us unscrew the fire alarms and just deactivate them because we couldn't figure it out. And they were there to help us, and they were there in like 5 minutes. It wasn't even long. And early in the morning, I was super appreciative of all that they did. But they are there to help. Just know that that's part of their job, and I wouldn't say they always enjoy it, but you know, they are there to be supportive of you, and they do enjoy the challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Steph, do we want to hop to the next slide? There we go. When to call 911. So it was touched on just a little bit earlier, but there is, I know I'm going to talk about 911, but there's also non-emergent numbers. So in Charlotte, the non-emergent number is 311. And a good rule of thumb, and I guess I was raised this way, prepare ahead of time. You never wait to figure out what you're going to do when an emergency hits. You always want to think ahead. So as Ashley mentioned, you want to have those numbers written down and accessible, especially for your little people. And oftentimes we do put it on the fridge like that. But I think writing down all your contacts, specifically what they're for, so that your children have access to them as well. Because when you're in an emergency, and I'm not saying anything that all of you nurses haven't already gone through, because you experience emergencies all the time. And, you know, I've been in several emergencies working in hospitals myself, and you think you know what you're going to do in the middle of an emergency, but sometimes your mind thinks totally the opposite. So it's really helpful to be prepared ahead of time, so that if you're stuck and not sure what you're doing, it's all right there for you. So 911, life-threatening emergencies. I just want to say very, very briefly, and this is not to cause anyone anxiety, but it's really important to know you only dial 911 in a true emergency. Please don't dial 911 if there is not an emergency. There's some consequences to that. Clearly, that would be decided upon, assessed at that time. But you don't want to call 911 if you're not sure where your local grocery store is. Every state has their own set of consequences as to dialing 911. That's kind of how serious it is. So again, I just want to make sure everybody knows that's typically for life-threatening emergencies. And a good rule of thumb medically is if they're elderly or children, those are the times you really want to pay attention to maybe using 911 as well. So heart attacks, everybody's familiar with how to assess that. Major accident, violent crimes, you may not really think about it, but there have been times in all of our lives where we've been at the wrong place at the wrong time and have seen and witnessed certain things. And you have to be quick and on the ball in order to, you know, get ahead of that situation so that things don't further get out of control. Dangerous situations like a fire, a gas leak. Last summer was in a Holiday Inn. I was on vacation with our family, and a giant explosion in the hotel, and it rocked the entire hotel. And we thought, well, this is the end of the world. The entire hotel is going to crash down. And it ended up that one of their generators had completely exploded in the hotel. And so we quickly, I would imagine that 911 in that area probably got about 250 calls all at the same time, but they were very quick to get fire, ambulance, police, everybody over to that situation. Because in a situation like that, nobody's quite sure what it is. I mean, is this something that requires police as well as? So, you know, that's always good to know that more than one resource oftentimes are going to come to your rescue. So it's not just going to be one. It might be two or three. Medical emergencies, you guys are all really, really great at doing those assessments. Severe illnesses, unresponsive people, again, don't forget the babies and the elderly. They're super important.
Marlo, just to go off, there was a question in the chat that said, do you pay if you call 911?
Oh, no, you don't. That is a free service available to you. Again, I just want to say, if you're dialing 911 and it's not an emergency, it may result in some consequences, but again, that would be assessed at the time. So please only call 911 in an emergency. Thanks, Ashley, for picking up on the chat. I don't think my chat is working. Sorry, folks. I'm not actually seeing any questions. So if something pops up, my team will make me aware. So we talked a lot about non-emergency situations. Before I talk about those, Ashley or Stephanie, have any of you had to call 911 before?
I'm not going to lie. I have never had to call 911.
That's great. I love hearing that.
I mean, I really haven't. Although I did research what happens when you call 911. So when you call 911, it's usually answered within 12 seconds.
Oh,
and you
wow.
may be put on hold, and when the operator answers, there will be a silence on the phone for several seconds, but do not hang up. Wait for the operator to speak.
Thank you.
So,
thank you for looking into that. That's great. I think I've maybe had to call 911 once, and it was a really long time ago. So thanks for the tip. It would probably be disconcerting if you're calling 911 and all of a sudden there's nothing on the other end of the phone, and you might think, oh my gosh, what just happened? So thanks for that. Everybody just hang on and wait. Looks like an operator is going to be right on there for you. So non-emergency situations, again, I mentioned in Charlotte, it's 311. Ashley, you were going to hop on with something?
Yeah, so sorry to interrupt. Fun fact for you guys, I don't know if you know this, but in a previous life or before this job, I was actually a medical dispatcher. That was my job.
oh.
And so when an emergency came in with the medical, I would get in touch with 911. And there's something really important to know when you answer or when you call 911. The first thing they're going to ask you is, what is your name, what's your address, and what's going on. So make sure you know where you are, and you're prepared to tell them that, because they can't respond to your emergency if they don't know where you are. So when you get on, wait for them to come on. They are super fast, I promise you. You get on, you say, this is my name, I'm Ashley. So there's a man having a heart attack, and this is our address. Those are the first things that they're going to ask you. So just be prepared for that, and they'll be able to help you.
I love that we're talking to nurses and working with nurses forever and ever, the different lifetime ago for me. They're very good at making those assessments and being able to, and every nurse that's hearing me right now will agree and understand that the doctors rely so heavily on you being able to appropriately assess the situation and then describe to them what's going on. So they're on it. You guys are superstars. We love. If you can't already tell, we're big fans of nurses. I have nurses in my family, and we are thankful every single day for the sacrifice that everybody makes. Okay, non-emergency. So in Charlotte, it's 311. I would encourage everybody that's arriving in the U.S. just to hop on where they are locally, just to get those non-emergent numbers. Suspicious activity. That sounds kind of funny, but I have on several occasions, unfortunately, been around areas where there's been some suspicious activity. And And what would you consider to be suspicious? Well, you could see somebody that is concealing an object. I'll go over this really briefly, but unfortunately I was in a bank at the time it was being robbed. And I didn't realize at the time, walked into my bank, and I was not being super observant. So everybody please be observant. That's a really important thing. I walked into the bank and it was being robbed and everybody was completely frozen in the bank. And I couldn't figure out why nobody was moving and no one was talking. And I looked up and sure enough, I saw the person at the teller and they had, you couldn't see what it was, but they were concealing something under their jacket. And you sometimes just walk into the wrong place at the wrong time. You'll see some people maybe following or looking over their shoulder. You could see somebody looking into cars. That's a big one. If you see somebody walking around the street and they're looking in people's cars and then they're trying the door handles, that would also be suspicious activity. Unfortunately, my daughter's car just got broken into about a month ago, and door cams. I don't know if we're going to talk about door cams today, but those doorbell cameras are amazing because it captured everything, who the people were. We could see it really clearly, what time it happened. So that was helpful for the police. But there's going to be, in your point in time, somewhere in the United States, you're going to witness some suspicious activity. So be aware of your surroundings. I think that's always important, to always be aware of where you're at. Noise complaints. Oh, golly, noise complaints. I had a dog. He was a husky. He really liked to howl at the moon and bark sometimes. And yeah, I had a neighbor who did not like my dog. And I had animal control show up at my house one day because he was just really loud and did a lot of barking. So that's a situation that can happen. Lost property. I've unfortunately had my house broken into. I've had some things stolen. So you're going to find yourself in a lot of situations that are after the emergency has happened. And staff, Ashley, hop on anytime. Can you share anything that relates to non-emergent situations especially in your area? What about Idaho?
Oh, that's a good question. Yes. You know what? I've realized by this webinar that I need to be more aware of what my non-emergency number is. Because I don't know. I know 411. Now, 411, you can call if you need directions. That used to be the old way, but now we have apps for that. But that is so interesting. I must have lived a life. I have not had a lot of non-emergency situations that I've had to use. That's really haven't.
Everybody moved to Idaho. There you go.
Yeah.
Ashley, what about your area?
I wouldn't say that I've had very many experiences in my life with emergency or non-emergency situations. I think the ones that I did have were crazy ones. But with the non-emergency situations, I typically had time to look it up on my phone to say what the local number was, Stephanie, in those cases. They aren't emergency. So, but it's good to know. I mean, I would say the one of the ones that I used it for was I called in because I had left my purse. It wasn't that I got stolen. It was that I left it on a subway. And so when I went to find it again, it wasn't there. And someone actually had returned it to the police station. And so I was able to call the police station and say, hey, I lost this property. I want to report it. And they ended up finding it. And they found my driver's license, all my credit cards. All my money was still in there. There are good people out there too. And, as we talk about these safety concerns and these bad situations that happen, there are good things that happen too. And so a non-emergency situation could be just that you left your purse in the subway or a park and you're just looking for it. And there are good people now. there are not good people everywhere you go who are going to make choices that aren't good, right? So I think the biggest thing that we can learn, especially with all these situations, is be cautious and be prepared. And if you follow those two guidelines, just like this situation, be prepared, know your non-emergency number, know your emergency number. And worst case scenario, if you're in a situation and you don't know if it's a non-emergency or emergency, if you even have to ask that question, go ahead and call 911. It's
actually, it's the other way around.
The other way around? Okay,
yeah, it is. If you're not sure, if it's an emergency or not, and thanks for bringing that up, because I was actually reading on this last night. Call your non-emergent line first. So call 311, like I said, in the Charlotte, North Carolina area. That's for us. You would call that, say, this is what I'm experiencing, and right away they'll advise you whether or not you should hop onto 911. So, and let's hope that
patch you into 911 too. If you call them and it's an emergency, they'll probably send you right over to 911.
Yeah. They're really good at being able to assess really quickly what's going on. So it's tough talking about safety and security because we never want to say anything that's too alarming. So please understand that everything we're talking about today is just for education. It's for information. It's to make everybody aware and help bring some peace of mind to everybody here, that this giant move to the United States is not as scary as you might be thinking it is. And as Steph mentioned earlier, I came from Canada, and even though that's part of North America, it was really different. Moving to the United States, a lot of things were clearly different. I was used to the RCMP, so the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and I came to the United States and the RCMP does not exist, and it's different. There are different police services. So just something simple like that was a bit of an adjustment for me. And no, they don't ride around on horses in Canada, only on holidays. Only on the 1st of July, they'll have the RCMP in their full uniforms on a horse. But no, we don't typically have horses running down the street to assist everybody. So non-urgent health issues leads me to the next thing I want to talk about that, again, I think all of us may have experience with. I know I certainly have, and it is ambulance services. So thankfully, I've only had to use the ambulance services just a handful of times. But one really number one important thing to remember is that covered in your insurance? So this, again, speaks to what I said earlier. Please be prepared ahead of time. Know what is covered on your insurance plan. Hopefully you would have it. And if you don't, then I don't know how that works. If you don't currently have a healthcare plan, I would imagine you're going to pay out of pocket. Wouldn't know the amount to that, but you would have to kind of cross that bridge when you get to it. But one ambulance situation I had, which wasn't urgent, but just needed an ambulance anyway. And my son had gotten a nosebleed, except it was the kind of nosebleed where he thought it was a crime scene. And it was starting to cause a lot of people concern. We were in a local Costco and it wouldn't stop. And it was really excessive and scary. So we had to call the ambulance there. And it ended up that I had some ambulance coverage, but not a lot. And I hadn't educated myself ahead of time. And so I did get a significant bill. But thankfully, they were able to make a couple more assessments and negotiate that down a little bit. So again, it's really important to know if those services are covered for you. And I think that's pretty much everything that the slide is talking about. Emergency room, urgent care. I'm going to advise you to go to an urgent care first. Emergency room is the same thing. You want to check your insurance. Some insurances, and I used to work in Nevada. I used to work for MGM Resorts, and they had their own insurance. And it was my job to work with the doctors and the MGM employees and be the liaison between all of those things. And it was really important to know that if you went to the emergency room and it was non-emergency, it wouldn't be covered. So you would have a really big out-of-pocket pay on that one. So if in doubt, go to your urgent care first. As soon as you walk into urgent care and you tell them what's going on, they will tell you in about 5 seconds if they can't assist you. And if that's something you need to head to your local emergency room for. So it's better to go to urgent care first and then make sure you don't incur a big copay as opposed to going to your emergency room. And that's why talking to nurses is really fantastic, because you guys are so good at assessing emergencies for sure. Any thoughts, ladies, that I forgot or left out?
I mean, I would just further emphasize that ambulance isn't free. And so if you can drive yourself to the hospital, that would be my best advice. Yep. If you can't, go with the ambulance. That's kind of the give and take there. And ambulances are expensive. And just to go off, most insurance does not cover a full ambulance ride.
Yeah, that's true.
So those are just good things to be aware of. Just further emphasize off of your point, Marlo.
All right, Ashley, take it away.
All right. Well, thank you, both of you, for all that great information so far. I'm really excited to talk to you a little bit about some things that are kind of that I feel are super important with your relocation team. This is a huge one, right? We're going to help you in your relocation and your travel to the United States. And that's one thing that can be new for many people. Many people haven't been on a plane before. Many people haven't traveled to a new country. And the best advice I have for traveling in any case scenario is be cautious. Don't share your information out and about to everyone. You don't have to tell people where you're going. You don't have to tell people what you're doing. If you get stuck in a situation where you feel like you need to tell them something, if you want to give them a little information, that's okay. It's not saying like avoid people and don't talk to people. People are nice. There are great people out there, but just be cautious. Once you get to the United States, traveling around, you want to use the same principles. Like we said before, the U.S. is huge. You are going to be traveling a lot. And public transportation is not widely available throughout the United States. So more often than not, you are going to be in a car. My biggest advice to everyone is learn to drive before you come. And learn the safety and the laws of where you are driving from or driving in. So if you're going to be in North Carolina, learn North Carolina's driving laws. Americans are experienced drivers, and sometimes because they're experienced drivers, they like to take a lot of risk. So depending on your area, sometimes people are more aggressive drivers. Sometimes people are more hesitant, just depending on where your city is and what those regulations and laws are. But laws in the United States in regards to driving are not suggestions. If you do not follow those laws, you could get pulled over and get tickets. You could easily have to pay a lot of money or even fines or lose your license by not driving safely. I always like to say I have two siblings who actually just got their driver's license at 16. They said, you be the safest person on the road. No matter what other people are doing, you make sure you are being safe, and that will keep you protected. When you are in with public transportation, the same things apply. Keep to your personal space. Make sure that you have all your belongings with you and you're not sharing information. And the last thing I want to kind of share with travel security is anything to do with ride sharing apps such as Uber and Lyft. You hear all kinds of crazy stories, but I can tell you from my personal experience, I use them all the time. Anytime I travel, I am using ride share apps. I use Uber like a crazy person, but you just want to make sure that you're getting into the right car, or you are following the app and making sure that it's taking you where you need to go. Just all those little things. Funny story is I happened to accidentally get into the wrong Uber at the airport one time. I got all in, got all my bags in, sat down, and this other lady comes and knocks on the door, and she goes, "You have my Uber." Thank heavens I didn't drive off with that person. But so a tip and trick that I have with rideshare apps is go up to the front and ask them for their name. Don't ask, "Are you John?" Say, "What is your name?" And they'll say, "Oh, I'm John." And you make sure that it's connected. And always look at the license plate, because the license plate will correlate with your app. So if you have that, you can double check which car you're getting into. It'll save you an awkward situation of being like, "I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong Uber. Can you get my bag out?" So yeah, anything I missed.
Ash, let me just hop on. I finally got my chat to work. I couldn't get it to scroll at all. It was totally frozen. But I'm glad you touched on that, because we did have someone with a concern. How do I know if this is really an authentic taxi and authentic Uber? And I know you and I have Ubered together, and I rely on you because you have the Uber app. So I rely on you to make sure that we're getting in the right Uber. But thank you for touching on that for them.
Yeah, I would say that any app that you're going to have nowadays, especially in the US, it's going to have a picture of your driver. It's going to have a picture of the car, the type of car it is. It's going to have the license plate number. Just verify all those things. And you do that, and there's no worry there. They want to continue driving and being an Uber driver just as much as you'd like continue ride with them. That's their job. And many apps nowadays, like Uber, actually just started some kind of law, I believe, where if they got under like 3 reviews that weren't great, they're off the app. They can't drive anymore. So, they're held to really high standards. And I would say when it comes to taxis, if you're at an airport or at a very public place and there's a lot of taxis, you're in good hands. Those are typically good ones. I personally think the security of a rideshare app is better in all cases, because you can track it. People can track where you are. You can identify a lot more. But any of those situations, I've driven in and been very safe. So.
I got a question for you, Ashley. Maybe how comparable cost-wise, if you're stacking a taxi ride up against a ride share like Uber, Lyft, which is there one over another that might be more affordable?
Oh, that is a really good question, and I'm so glad you brought that up. And it really depends on where you're at. So I could tell you, so when I was in Las Vegas, taxis are way cheaper because they run specific routes and they can tell you exact prices from different places. In Charlotte, because of the distance, I actually think Uber's cheaper. It'll fluctuate at different times during the day too, with rideshare apps, based on the traffic, based on your distance. So if you monitor it, you can see the fluctuations, those kind of things. Most rideshare apps tend to stay around the same price. And with taxis, it really just depends on where you're at. But the thing about a taxi that's different from an Uber is a taxi, you won't know the price until you get out. Whereas in an Uber, you'll know the price before you get in. So those are just a little bit differences there. And that's just getting to know your area. And sometimes it's just, what is, one, it's coming prepared, right? Two, but sometimes you just got to say, what am I going to feel most secure in? Is it okay to spend $5 extra to do a rideshare app where I know where I'm going, know where I'm getting, those kind of things? And you've got to evaluate. You got to evaluate that for yourself and just come prepared. If you're going to arrive in a new area, make sure you know where you're going to where you're going and those points. And that'll help you a lot.
I do want to hop on with something that just popped into my mind while you were chatting in regards to taxis. So I've not had to take taxis outside of the United States too often. Just around the UAE. I was traveling Greece once. Now, I'm just going to use my Greece experience. That was not a great taxi experience because they and I'm only mentioning this in case this is what everybody is listening to me experiences, but in the United States, they have a meter, for lack of a better way to put it. So they hit it, meter starts. When you're done and you arrive, you know the dollar amount that you're owing. Well, when I was traveling around, you didn't know the dollar amount because a taxi driver just decided to charge you whatever at the time, and they could throw an increase on there. And I remember one of my companions just told the taxi driver, nope, not paying that. I'll give you this much. And I thought, wow, that's fascinating. We're bartering with the taxi driver. So there is no bartering with the taxi driver in the US. You can be sure that the meter starts, it stops. You're going to get whatever flat rate that is. And you don't have to be anxious and thinking that the taxi driver is going to change that amount or jack it up or, yeah, I'm really glad you talked about that.
No, Marlo, thank you for bringing that up. That's a great thing. There's no bargaining here in the United States. If you get a fine, you get a fine. Those kind of things. So just be aware of that. I think that's awesome. All right, Stephanie, is there anything you'd add for traveling safety?
No, just again, be educated, be prepared, do your homework. I mean, when you're prepared, you won't be frightened because you will know what to do, when to do, how to do it.
Love that. All right. Well, for the sake of time, I'm going to just move forward, but thank you, both of you. I think that's just an important one. With your relocation, you're going to be traveling. So be aware of that. And as you're traveling, be prepared about your personal safety. You are your number one advocate. You are going to, the little things that you do can impact your travel, can impact your situation. So the more prepared you are personally, the more prepared you will be in any situation that you are in. Some basic travel tips that I have for personal safety: travel in a group when you can. And this is coming from someone who loves to travel solo. I have done many solo trips across the United States, and it's more fun in a group, one. But it's also safer in a group. But when you are traveling alone, it's even more important to not tell people where you're going, what you're doing, what any financial information that you have. There's very specific documents that you never want to share with anyone. That's your social security number, your green card, unless you need it for employment, unless you need it for very specific things. You should not be giving that to random people on the street, or even your best friend or neighbor, right? Those are important information to keep secure, unless you need it for a very specific situation like a mortgage, or starting work, like I just said. Best advice that I can always give, until you really know someone, it's always good to proceed with caution. I think trust is something that you always want to be careful giving out to people. I'm not saying we don't need to trust anyone, because we do need to trust people and we do need to work with people, and that's important. But it's always proceed with caution, and keep your eyes open, and don't justify people's actions. And that's the best way to keep yourself personally safe.
Can I add to that we normally don't, like you said, when you get your Social Security card, you don't normally carry that card with you, like Ashley was saying. Although I do believe you have to have your permanent resident card with you at all times. So just to make that clear.
You should.
Is that right, Marlo? Am I right?
Yeah, because I'm a green card holder,
yes.
Everybody. And my husband razzes me all the time. He's like, you don't want to be an American citizen.
Yes,
and I say, I'm very, very busy. I'm very scared to take the test. I'm very scared to not pass the citizenship test. So with that being said, I don't keep my passport, but I do have to keep my green card, because if you are in a situation that requires you to be, discuss if you're citizen or not, or you're in a sticky situation in regards to, a crime or personal safety, it's really important to be able to verify, right? And that's the ultimate verification, is that little green card.
I love that. I didn't even think about that. So thank you guys so much for bringing that up. Me personally, anytime I leave the door, I have my cell phone, I have my keys, and I have my driver's license. And, so in your case, I'd add in the green card. You want personal identification. You want something to be able to contact. And you want to be able to, well, for me, it's my keys and now my house and my car. But make your own list. What is it that I need to leave the house? What is it that I need in case of any situation? Be prepared. So I love that. Awesome. Okay, so for the sake of time, I'm going to move on to the next one. The last thing I wanted to just touch on in my set was with cybersecurity. I love that we have the Social Security on here. The Social Security office, the UCIS, will never call you. In the United States, there is a significant amount of scams that come across your phone, that will come across your email, and they're all phishing. And their biggest tactic that they use is to scare you. So they're going to send you an email and say, oh my gosh, you owe $1,500. I don't know. You owe $1,500, or this person is sick, and you need to send this money to save them, or they are in jail. Make sure that your first reaction to anything that you receive on a phone, on your email, in the mail, is not to go, oh my gosh, I have to help them. It should be the opposite. It should be, oh, is this real? That should be your first thing that you think about anytime you receive anything, is to be suspicious of it. And I don't say that to scare you. I actually say it to protect you. If you're suspicious, make sure that it's real before you do anything. You're never going to have to give your information out to anyone that can't verify it to you. So just remember that, and just be cautious. Make sure that your computer has software and antivirus programs that'll protect a lot of those phishing. And don't just give your phone number out on random websites. Random websites that come up and they're like, give us your phone number. They will sell your number off to different companies, and you'll get telemarketing calls and you'll get scam calls. So just be cautious of what numbers you're giving out. Be cautious of who you're giving out information, like your email, different things like that. And do not react to them until you can verify that it's real.
And I'd like to add something, and something that we've run into, when you get an email that's from someone that, it may be a friend or relative or whatever, can you go and buy gift cards? Can you go and buy, that's a no, don't do it. No gift cards.
Biggest scam out there. Or phones. Don't go buy anything from the store, like a phone or a gift card. You don't need to buy anything.
Yeah, I'm going to throw one more thing on there just because it happened last night. So Ashley made mention that you're going to get those phishing, and I'll use text because this popped up on my, as a text last night. So you're going to get the one saying, hey, this is the IRS, you owe $10,000. Last night, I got a text from DHL. Everybody knows DHL. And it said, hey, we're trying to deliver a document that's going to require your signature. Please click on this link. So, of course, the second you click on the link, then you just open yourself up, and these hackers have access to get all sorts of information. So it's good to remember, hey, I don't have anything that I should be receiving and signing for. So I deleted it. Now, should that be a true thing? Don't worry about it. If something's real and you've deleted it thinking that it's phishing or a scam, don't worry about it. They'll contact you again. If by chance your bank or your credit card company is really, really trying to reach out to you, they'll figure out a way to get in touch with you. So don't be afraid to delete it or not open it or click on it thinking, oh golly, what if this is real and I need to do that? If in doubt, just remember that the banks and especially credit card companies will never ask for your personal information through a text, even through an email. I've done this in the past where I was unsure of an email I received. I forwarded it to my bank and I said, hey, I need you to take a look at this. Did you send this? And they verified for me. They said, nope, this indeed is not from us. Please, disregard that. This is phishing. So
I love that. Hey, Marlo, you made a really good tip there that I just want to further emphasize. You can verify that if it's real. If somebody comes asking you, or, if the Social Security office reaches out to you saying we need this from you, pick up the phone and call a different number. Go find the Social Security office in your area, call them to verify that that call is coming from them. Don't respond back to the one that you received. Go call them separately. I actually did that with my internet bill the other day. I had a message that came into me saying, your payment didn't go through for your internet. And so instead of just calling back on that number, I went and looked up the number and I called them directly to verify that it was real. So just taking those extra steps of caution will save you in the long run. So awesome. Okay. Well, I guess we will move on.
Home security, it's such a great, like I said, technology is amazing nowadays. I mean, literally, you can get the Ring camera. Marlo, I think you mentioned that earlier, that you were able to record something. We bought, it doesn't have to be expensive. We bought like these little cameras that we just kind of put around the house. You don't have to get this massive setup. So, definitely, obviously the basics is, you lock your doors and your windows. When you come in, don't, I'm not going to lie. In Idaho, in our neighborhood, I'm not the best at locking the door my front door when I go in the house, because it's, a safe place. But depending on where you're at, the habit is best to lock your doors and your windows. Again, going to the home security systems, you don't have to go, way out and spend a lot of money. It's very reasonable nowadays to have home security. So, and, we even have an app for our, the car door. It tells us we can like open it and close it from our phone. Who thought of that? That was pretty amazing. So we know if our, our garage door is open or closed. So, and also, the best thing, your best security is your neighbors, because they are going to know who you are. They're going to know, get to know your neighbors if you can. Building a community. There used to be a community watch. I don't know if you're familiar with that, Marlo or Ashley, but community watch is something. Like you said, there was the app. What was the app again that you used?
It's called Nextdoor. Yeah.
Nextdoor. Yes, Nextdoor is really good. They put out alerts. They say, oh, there's, we saw, such and such going on, just to make everybody aware. So there's just so many options. I definitely would. You don't ever have to not feel secure where you are, I guess. Does anybody have anything to add to that?
Yeah, back in the olden days, it used to be if you were on the neighborhood watch, you could get a sign and you'd pop it in your, living room window so that it was being able to be seen from the street. So a good reason that was super helpful was if there were kids in the neighborhood and they were experiencing any challenges, if they were able to look up to wherever they were in any neighborhood and they could see the sign in the window that house participated in the neighborhood watch, they knew that they could right away run to that house and get some urgent care right away. So that was the old school, but now apps have kind of taken over that world, right?
I agree. Yeah. I agree.
A lot of these apps too, they have recording properties, so they'll record in sections if there's any activation motion center. So I actually just recently bought a home, and we put in a program called WISE. It's WYZE, and I recommend it to anyone. You just buy the device. There's not a subscription you have to pay for. We can all be on it on our phones. Ring is another great one. But with what I love about WISE is it's got motion detectors. So if something moves, it'll go to it. I mean, we found many of animals in our backyard through that device, and that's kind of fun too. But it also helps, I think, just a good security system is to have one on your door if you have packages that are arriving, to make sure that your packages aren't being taken. And again, that just depends on your area. Like in my area, I'm not very concerned about my packages being taken from my doorstep, but in a very urban cityscape, that might be a bigger concern of yours. And for example, Amazon will have boxes that you can say, I'd like it sent to this box instead of my doorstep, if that's a concern. Just learning your area, getting to know it. But home security, I think it's worth the investment.
I agree. Yeah, agree. Like, what do they call those? Porch pirates, Ashley. Those are porch pirates. I'm going to move on.
Oh, severe weather. Well, you know what? This is going to tie in. I wanted to just circle back to all the wonderful people that put their emergency numbers in the chat. So just for fun, let's go over that really quickly. So hi, Denmark. Thanks for tuning in. And Brazil. So let's go to the UK, one of my favorite places. UK emergency number is 99. Nigeria, it says our emergency number for the police in the south is 10111. I don't know if we're going to see similarities in all these numbers. Hi, Kuwait. Jamaica, it's 119 in Jamaica for the police. An ambulance in South Africa has a different number. So that's really good, South Africa. We've got like a couple different numbers here. It's 10177. And I have down here, I think this one's in the Philippines somewhere. We got police is 999, ambulance is 997, and fire is 998. So thank you everybody for hopping on and participating and throwing that in there. Severe weather preparedness. It will differ wherever you live in the United States, because let me tell you, that is the melting pot of weather. So when I first moved to South Carolina, I came from Nevada. So I went from a desert all the way over to, I think if you look it up, it's considered tropical, subtropical weather. So I got the delightful news a week before we moved into the house we bought that a massive storm had come in and completely wiped out the retaining wall in our backyard. So it was really good to know that, you know, we had, first of all, neighbors that were looking out for us and made us aware of that. And that's sometimes what severe weather can do. It was really shocking. You never think you're going to lose part of your retaining wall, but yeah, the rain was so heavy and there's so much flooding going on that it just wiped it right out. So it's always good to plan ahead. You're going to hear me say that 100 times. Create a family emergency plan and emergency kit. The three of us here all swear by family emergency preparedness. We've all done it. Yep. All the ladies I'm talking to know exactly what I'm referring to, but we have at any given time created an emergency kit for each individual member of our family. And what that would contain is you probably want to put about 72 hours worth of emergency things in there, including some clothes, maybe a little bit of a first aid kit, some snacks, some water, even a radio. You want to make sure that you are consistently keeping up with that 72-hour emergency kit. It's really great to put it together, but it's also important to remember that if it's been sitting for 6 months and you have a 2-year-old, whatever set of sleepers you threw in there most likely is not going to fit them in 6 months from now. So you want to be updating your water in there. You want to make sure that your clothes are updated in there. Batteries as well. If you've put any batteries in that kit, you want to make sure they're still working. and things are still functioning, and it has been fantastic. Just here, having the security of knowing that you have those kits ready to go should you need to grab them and leave the house at a moment's notice. So shelters, knowing where your local shelters are for natural disasters, super important. Tornado Alley, where is Tornado Alley? Help. Where in the United States?
Oklahoma, right in the middle.
Okay.
Kansas.
Yep.
To the top of Texas.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. And we have a lot of hurricanes. I know in Canada where I used to live, I drove right into the middle of a hurricane. It was delightful. It was not delightful, but I do specifically remember when the eye of that hurricane came in, it was so incredibly quiet. And then when it passes over you, it is not quiet any longer. So stay informed. During that time, we had our radios on. It was consistently updating us as to where that was and what to do. We happened to be driving on the highway at the time. So, you know, after the hurricane had passed, you could see ahead of you probably about a mile of cars that had all pulled over on the shoulder of the highway just to stay safe, and we'd all kind of stuck together. So apps, radios, TV is really good. Remember, though, that in an emergency, should power go out, it's really important to have something battery operated, and you can still, yep, the crank. We had the crank one too. I have a radio that you crank it, or a flashlight that you crank and will generate the light. So good to have batteries and something crankable, because, you know, I'm an old person, and I remember the days of having to do things like mail a letter and write things by hand and having to use batteries. And I didn't have a cell phone. They didn't exist growing up as a kid. For golly, I didn't have a cell phone until I was a grown up. So yeah, remember, just be prepared for any of those circumstances. Any thoughts? Anybody have to go through severe weather?
Yeah, I would say that this really comes back into what we've been saying the whole time, is research your area.
Yeah.
You know, one part of the U.S. might have hurricanes, and other ones might have blizzards with, 10-foot snow drives. You really know where you're at and know what to be prepared for. Your local fire department is one of those places. If you want to talk to somebody about it, they can have all that information, but the internet will have a lot of it. And just be prepared for what is prevalent in your area. You know, if your area isn't prevalent for tornadoes, you don't need to prepare for those. But if your area has big snowstorms, you want to be prepared for that. You want to have big blankets. You want to have a shovel ready. You're going to need different things. One of the things that Marlo touched on was that emergency preparedness. I like to have a 72-hour kit. Or what do I need to have for 72 hours? If anything were to happen, I need water, I need food, and enough for everybody in my family. And just keep that in the garage. You know, we actually have a big trash can that it's an old one, and it's just full of everything we need with little backpacks. And if I ever needed to go, we just take that, put it in the car, or, and we have everything we need. So one of the big ones is water. That's in most cases, you always need water in an emergency. So having a big drum in the yard is always good.
So in the chat, I put in www.ready.gov. That's put out by the U.S. government. They have lots of publications and a 1-800 number. So again, just be prepared. Get educated.
All right, Ashley, finish us off.
Yep.
I love this. And this is my favorite one. The more you're involved in the community, I promise you, the more safe you'll feel. Knowing your neighbors, knowing the community events, knowing where to go, and who you're living next to, and it's going to give you a lot of peace of mind. And this goes for moving anywhere. I just recently moved myself, and I have loved getting to know my community and the diverse races and the diverse cultures that are all around me. And there are so many ways to get engaged. And I can tell you, my favorite has actually been Facebook. getting on these groups with people in my area. They are so funny. I just read through them, and people are just having a good time. They'll be excited about the new cookout that's being built, and everybody's commenting and having fun, and you can get involved in that, and that'll keep you up to date on what's going on. I love what Stephanie said about the local library. We've been going to the library a ton. They just had a free thing on star constellations that you could go and learn about constellations. And we went there and we met a bunch of people in the area that all like to look at stars. And my daughter loved that. And it was free. And so, especially in the holidays right now, there's lights everywhere. There's fun free things that you can go get. That gets you to know your area, be comfortable where you are. Get involved with local programs like YMCAs. I like to bring those up. Those are, YMCA has a lot of programs or discounts that can help you if you're like financially not in a good place, but they have great communities there. There's even anything to do with exercise, and just looking into your local programs and what's available in and around you will help you feel safe, but it also make friends. And the friends and neighbors and people and being a part of people brings safety. Being a part of the community and contribute to the safety of the community. If you have a local watch program, join up, sign up, be a part of it, learn about it, get involved, know who your police officers are, know who your firemen are, know who the ambulance, I'm going to emphasize this so much just because it's so important. You will feel better and at ease when you know the people that are in and around you. Sometimes you're in areas, though, that are huge, that have hundreds of thousands of people, right? And big cities. So get to know what your small community is, and you'll feel a lot better. Anything anybody wants to add to that?
Community involvement is really critical to settling in and getting to know what life is like in the US. And as soon as they find out that you're new to the country, they're going to embrace you with open arms. And it is so good to get involved with the community because it will help with other things. So on that Nextdoor app, they're constantly saying, hey, I need a good handyman. My window's leaking. What would you guys suggest? Or, hey, I need a good doctor, a good family doctor in the area. Does anybody have any suggestions there? And I find that the community involvement, they really help you. Aside from, safety and security, they help you with so many other things. Like, hey, where can I find a good deal on, ground beef today? Like down to just the simplest thing. So
I love that. And, it made me, I've been doing that constantly. I needed a photographer the other day, and I put it on a chat, and I was like, hey, anybody know a photographer? I had 59 people respond.
Yeah, it's totally true.
This is who I recommend. And I love that. Thank you so much. And I for bringing that up. The last thing I want to say just with community involvement is that is essential in acclimating anywhere that you move to. And in your case, moving from another country, Americans are pretty blunt people. They're gonna talk to you. They're gonna ask you questions about where you came from, and don't take that as an insult. Take it as curiosity. People like to know about other people, and they're going to be curious of where you're coming from and your experiences. They may ask you, what's it like? What are your social what social events do you do in Germany? What social events do you do in the Philippines? What do you like to eat? I like to eat this. Come try this with me.
I've just about forgot. Thanks for bringing that up. Cultural centers. Did we talk about that? Just really quickly, look for the cultural center in your local area. The reason why that just popped into my mind is my mom is Swiss. So she's born and raised in Switzerland, and down the road, and that wasn't why she moved there, but just about 3 blocks from her house is the German community center. So everybody just look it up. See if there is a local anything center that's within a couple miles of where you're at, and then just put yourself out there, get involved.
I love that. I lived in Brazil for a while.
Yeah.
And I love Brazilian culture. And so I'm always searching for the best, Brazilian store. And it's fun to go to those places because, you have people of like mind, who are also in the same situation that you are, that also love that culture. Marla, that's a great, And they also, go ahead. Go ahead.
Stephanie. Ash, I just want to say, going back to my dad, I'm a first generation American, and one good thing about the United States, like Ash was saying, is that there's not that many generations away from an immigrant. So in your family, so it's really, what makes the U.S. very exciting. We kind of think out of the box a lot of ways because we don't have the thousands and thousands of years of, history in our country, but I just find that interesting.
Love it. We are a true melting pot, and the greatest thing that I love is to celebrate the differences that we all have and we all bring. And there's so many people, so many backgrounds, so much history that are all together.
That means we're gonna turn it over to CJ.
Yeah, that's right.
For CJ. Hey, CJ, I think it's time for Q&A. You want to hop on with your thoughts?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm going to help you with the Q&A. And also, I want to share, I'm also an immigrant in the United States. My wife is a nurse, and she's under Worldwide HealthStaff. And we are so blessed to be, under Worldwide HealthStaff. And so just for my own experience before moving in the US, so we're like a year and 10 months now in the United States. And prior moving or transitioning in the US, there is this news that a man pushed an Asian in the train. So we were really scared during that time because we are also Asian. So we were searching in the news, how safe is the area. But when we moved in the United States, we were shocked because it's really safe in this place. Well, actually, we are in Charlotte, North Carolina. So I can say that United States is a big country and consists of different states. And not all things in the news are happening in all cities. Like most cities are safe, so don't worry about the news. And also, they only focus negative things in the news. So take that. Put that on a note. And also, this year we just purchased our house, moved into this new location, and for safety, I can also say purchase your door cameras and CCTV cameras all over, from the front yard to backyard. So now I'm using this Blink app. I just want to show you something like this. So this is from the driveway, and this is in our backyard. So any movement, I'll receive a notification. So even though I'm in the office and my wife is sleeping in the house, any movement, I always receive a notification and check it, for safety, for my wife's safety. And also, I also have this door camera. So every time any person that will, ring the doorbell, I talk to that person via the app. So I don't usually open doors, especially if I'm not expecting, people like visitors, because it's for your own safety as well. Yeah. So let's proceed with our Q&A. Yeah, I've seen a lot of questions, and people, international nurses are really excited to move into the US. So let's start with this question from Roger. He said, how can I check the crime rates and other safety indicators of a neighborhood before I move in the United States?
I'll take that one because I actually just responded to it. So it was a good time. No, it's perfect. I would say that first and foremost is understand that crime is seductive. So the crime rate that you may feel is very, very intense where you are, or what you know may be different in the United States. And so it's just important to know. First and foremost, the best way to know what areas are safe and what are not are talking to people in the community. So getting involved in a social media group that's over your community. It's like, hey, I'm moving here. What are some good places to look for housing? What are some safe places? Those are good. Those are ways to be involved in the community. Reach out, those kind of things with buddies. We use a website a lot called Best Neighborhoods. Love it. It'll give you areas that are that you want to look for housing and different things like that. Again, I just always put out with that is it's subjective. So majority of areas are very, very safe, even if it is indicated a certain way, because they're going to put in a lot of different factors to play around with. But again, talking to people is going to be the best way to find the safest areas. And when you're relocating, your relocation coordinator, if you want to get involved in those, can help you look for them. So those are all different things that you can do.
Yeah, that's all correct. So next question is from Ernest. He said, I want to find out how good the public transport system in the US. And secondly, is it better to drive or travel by public transport?
Oh, that it all depends on where you live.
Yeah.
So if you're living in a big city like New York City, Chicago, somewhere, Dallas, Texas, something like that, even Charlotte has probably a decent public transport, but driving, I don't see how you cannot survive if you're out of a big city without learning to drive. I mean, you can do Uber and Lyft and all of that, but my experience is that driving is just kind of like a way of life here, because the distances, again, the United States is huge. I mean, I just drove from Idaho all the way to the East Coast, and I went through 13 states, and it took over 36 hours to drive. I mean, I think sometimes it's hard for people to understand the long distances that you go through here. I don't know, CJ, what are your thoughts?
My suggestion would be go and drive your own car, because the way back in the Philippines, like an hour drive away from my location is too far. That's from the Philippines, but here, like, that's normal. When we have like dinner, I have dinner with my wife like an hour away to the restaurant, and also groceries and anything. That's pretty normal. Like, I'll say 30 minutes to an hour away drive. Mm-hmm. That's pretty normal. So get the car and drive.
Yeah, and I would add in the U.S. One of our biggest failings is the public transportation system. Mm-hmm. That we are other countries are way more developed in that area. Americans like to drive. They like to own their own cars. They like to get where they're going at any point in time. And my advice, coming strictly from a relocation perspective, is everyone, whether or not you're going to a big city, you should know how to drive coming to the United States, because even if you do go to a big city, there could be a situation where you need to drive. And so I just, from a safety perspective, know how to drive before you get here. Take classes. They will be cheaper outside of the United States. Learn how to drive where you're at. Learn the rules of driving where you are. And one of the first things to do is to get your driver's license when you get here. Once you get your social, go get your driver's license. It's important. It will save you a lot of stress, time, and money. It is an essential part of being an American is knowing how to drive. And I would say it's because our public transportation system isn't very great. And like CJ said, you know, an hour drive is normal. Public transportation is going to take you 3 hours to get there. So it is available, but it may take you longer to get there. So it's important to note those things. I would not plan on using public transportation unless you absolutely need to, or you luck out and have a really good apartment right next to one that's going to take you pretty close. But that comes into a lot of research, and I wouldn't plan on it.
Oh yeah, and also one good tip, just practice and practice, because the speed speed limit or the speed of the cars here in the U.S. is different when I was compared to when I was driving in the Philippines. So just expose yourself and drive and start it now.
CJ, everything is different than driving in the Philippines, okay? Having to drive in the Philippines a few times myself.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah, in the Philippines, a lot of traffic, but in the US, it's like freeway, but it's so much faster. Okay, so next question is about HOA. This is from Joni. Do all neighborhoods in the United States have HOA or homeowners association? And a follow-up question, do we need to register or inform HOAs when we move into a neighborhood? And this is the reason is he wants to avoid being targeted by the neighborhood Hallie.
I know, I saw that.
Okay, I got an HOA, so I'll hop in on this one. HOA was nothing familiar to me prior to arriving in the US. I'm sure it exists in Canada, but I always lived in a small town or outside, so I wasn't accustomed to that. So right now the community I live in does have an HOA, and you actually do have to, when you move into that community, it's just automatic. You'll be put in touch with the HOA, you'll register, you'll be connected with them, and then you get awesome things like their newsletters. There will be an annual HOA fee. So having an HOA does mean you're going to have a little bit out of pocket, but that's okay. Typically, there'd be maybe a clubhouse in your community, which has been really fantastic. You can use that for social events or just coming together as a community. And as far as what do you notify the HOA about, if you were to dig up and have to remove a shrub out of your front yard, you would want to reach out and say, hey, HOA, one of my shrubs is not looking too healthy. I got to take it out. Or, hey, I'd like to paint my door. Or just any changes that would affect anything in your neighborhood in any way. You just want to reach out and touch base with your HOA just to make sure that that is good to go, because I've had friends that did not reach out to their HOA and then got a stern letter saying, really should have let us know that you were going to rip out 3 of your trees in your front yard. So.
Yeah, I also have HOA, and yeah, that's all correct. But you will also receive emails, activities of the neighborhood, every for example, summer activities, something like that. So every season you'll get the chance to meet the people in your neighborhood with the activities.
Yeah, and normally HOAs they elect people to the HOA. So you get a president, you get a treasurer, it's a community based organization. So
okay, yeah, all correct. And we're done with our last 2 questions. And this is a question from Francesca. I'm also curious about this one. So the question is, where electricity gets switched off at certain times, day or evening?
That's a great question. If your electricity is going to go off, they're going to let everybody know way in advance. Unless it was something like a tree fell down and took out your electricity. If you are paying for your electricity, you're paying for your water, those are all what we call utilities that you have to pay for. They're not going to shut it off unless you don't pay for it. And the only time that they would shut it down was if there was an emergency situation that happened. They had to reboot something, or a tree fell down, and they're going to shut off the power so that they can remove it safely. But all of those things will be communicated to you. If it does just shut off, there's a reason behind it, and it's most likely that something happened to the wire.
Yeah, or a transformer blew or something. I mean, we expect to have electricity in the United States. I mean, that's like, we really do. And when it doesn't happen, it's in the news. I believe in Texas, they may have had some rolling, issues during the summer when there was heavy usage. But it's odd for us not to have electricity.
Yeah, and your phone is a great way to check. If your electricity goes off and you go on your phone, you go to your community, they'll be telling everyone.
Yeah,
like, zone out 8 is out, something blue, because we all want to know. Because it is, like she said, if the power goes out, everybody's going to be like, "What is going on?"
And also, I just want to add, like, every time we have a problem with electricity in the area, I always receive like a text message from the company. So that's really great, and that's like a different compared to the Philippines. In the Philippines, whenever there is problems, they just shut it off without me knowing the problem. But here, you'll be notified, informed of like all what is happening. And okay, we're done with the last question, and this is an interesting question from Amos. What is the safest state in the U.S., in your opinion?
I would say just every state has safe places and places that aren't safe. Every state, the best way to put it is a state in the United States is about the size of a little country in Europe. You're going to have places that are safe, and you're going to have places that aren't safe. And that's even in a city. Like, even in a big city, you're going to have areas that are super safe and areas that aren't. And I think that's a really hard question to answer just because of the vast size of state. And you're going to have areas that don't have any people. You have states that aren't very populated. You have states that are extremely populated. They're going to have very different rates. And well, that's mine. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
I don't think there is maybe if somebody had asked that question 50 years ago, there might have been an answer to that question, but there isn't one state I would say that's preferable over the other. Do your research, and just because you log on, and being a case manager many years ago, this was a question I got asked by nurses all the time, was, hey, I'm really nervous. I want to change my assignment. I just looked on and saw the crime rate in this city that I'm going to be assigned to is super high, and I'm worried for my family. You have to remember that, they have to post statistics online so that you're aware that things are going on in that area. But conversely, you need to remember there are all those emergency resources that are going to be available to you. So you're going to have fire, ambulance, police, everything available for when you need it. And I think us being a good global family is the most important thing. You want to improve crime rate, you want to make things better, we need to be a good global family, everybody, and that's how we're going to improve and make things more safe and secure in the United States.
All right, so that's it for our Q&A session, and I just want to let you know that if you want more of like webinars like this and future announcements, open houses, and events from Worldwide HealthStaff Solutions, go and like us on Facebook. I'll put that on the chat. With that, you'll be notified or be updated on our future activities. And also, we have this referral nurse friend program that if you have a nurse friend who's an NCLEX passer and have a minimum of like 1 year current bedside experience, you can refer them with us, and you will have like $250 for every success referral. So I will also put that on the chat for the link of that. And also, if you are a nurse, as I said, an NCLEX nurse, apply with us at healthstaff.org, apply healthcare, and start your US journey with Worldwide Health Staff. And just one last link for you. If you are interested and you want to ask more about the company, chat with our live recruiters. They will be more than happy to assist and help you with all your questions when it comes to immigration and like any questions about the company. So back to you, Marlo, Stephanie, and Ashley.
Thanks. I just want to wish everybody joy and happiness with the upcoming holiday season. The holidays are coming up in the United States, and wherever you're celebrating around the world, you know, we want to make sure that we do it safe and that we're happy and hug the person you love, and just wish everybody a joyful holiday season coming up. Thank you for tuning in with us today.